So today I'm going to find out what happened with my compost piles. So by way of background, I had two compost piles this year. One that started last fall around this time when we had leaves from our trees in the yard, and I just put all those in a corner, and I was planning on using them in the other compost. And then the other one was the compost sort of cylinder that I bought that I was being really diligent in the beginning of the summer. I had like compost starter enzymes. I had scraps from the kitchen. I used everything from the garden, like all the weeds I pulled. I even got neighbors' weeds in there. I flipped the compost several times at the beginning, and I was doing really good for maybe the first 2 months of the main compost effort. And then I pretty much just forgot about it. I had leaf just fell on my head. I had a issue where I had a huge problem with fruit flies about halfway through the summer because of the compost bins. I just wasn't emptying it like daily into the garden compost from the kitchen, and it just became more of a hassle than it was worth. The other thing is, I've heard and read that having all of the stuff you're going to do near your door is good, and this compost stuff is on the other side of the house, and while it isn't a very big yard, it just is the extra effort to have to walk all the way around and walk through the grass and all of that to get that there. I wouldn't ever want the compost to be near our front door anyway, so I'm probably not going to change that. But I think that was also a factor in why I might not have paid as much attention to it this year. So, all that being said, you're going to come with me, and I'm going to test out. I have a new tripod that I bought in a nice little handy dandy bag, another Cameo by the dog. I have a tripod, and I won't be using the microphone. I'll probably fast forward through it. I haven't tried that before. Why are you being my good girl? Lulu. All right. So I'm just going to find out what the deal is with my compost. If it's salvageable, if I need to do anything more with it. Both the leaf pile and also the actual cylinder bin, which is open to the air. There were little things I did, actually, I should add. There were little things I did over the summer when I'd kind of given up on it. Like whenever I'd walk by it with the hose to water the front yard, I'd have to walk by it. I would, if it hadn't rained for the last couple of days, I'd spray some water in there because I know it needs some water to function as well. I don't know if that was good or bad, because you also need aeration, but we're about to find out. So let's see how the compost semi-experiment / negligence has gone for me, if I've had any success. But first, by way of background, this is where the leaf pile is. I did have a branch that when I cut down something, I put it on top of it, and the leaves have obviously all come off. But this is basically where the leaf pile was. It was about as high as that tree is. And then over here is where the compost bin, as you can see. I have not rolled up my hose, but that's where the compost bin is. So they've both been in this area, and above them is a pine tree. So they don't get full shade throughout the day, and then there's sort of a stack of sticks and other brambles over there that if we ever decide to have a fire pit, I'll use for kindling, but who knows. All right, so here goes. Let's find out. Oh, and yeah, I don't really apologize for anything, but the hair isn't greasy. It's wet. Okay. So one initial observation I forgot to mention is that the compost basically shrinks a lot. I kind of knew this, but I didn't realize how much that would be true. And, I kept putting stuff into this bin. I made it full size, but it's really only like a quarter full. And there were points it was close to half full, but it just keeps compacting more. And so I think next year one of the things I'm going to do when I do this is I'm going to make the cylinder much smaller and more reasonable for like the amount of garden, extra foliage we have, as well as just the ability to turn it, I think, will be easier. So as you can see, it's pretty low down for the full height of the thing. It's probably maybe 2 inches off the ground, maybe 3 or 4. And I think there's some leaves and sticks in there that just fell naturally that I didn't put in it. So, all right, now to open up the container and check out what's inside, and then we'll do the leaf pile last. All right, here goes. So, other than there being some sticks and random things, and I'm pretty sure when our roof workers were doing roof repair, they might have thrown some of their trash in the garbage pile. The soil looks pretty good. We have some eggshells, and we know eggshells don't break down fast, but I mean, the soil, look at that. It's really quite beautiful. It's moist and it holds together, but it's also crumbly. It doesn't smell bad. So I'm actually pretty excited. I don't know what that is. I think it's a pretty good job. I'm definitely gonna have to do some work to maybe bag it up and process it a little bit more, maybe go through it to get out the big things. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that, but I'm pretty happy, I have to say. Just realized the camera's at an angle. There we go. I have to say I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I mean, I was expecting some gelatinous muck, you know, and instead I'm getting pretty decent, I mean, some pretty decent soil there. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to clean it up a little bit. Some questionable bits in it, but for the limited amount of time I put effort into it, I'm pretty happy. I mean, I probably have enough to put good topping on most of my front beds, which isn't very much, and maybe my other square beds. It'll probably only be maybe an inch total on the top, but I think it'll provide some pretty good nutrients for the plants. So I've yet to see whether some seeds or things that will have any volunteers come out of it, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Now let's check out what the situation was with the leaves. So I lost the main microphone cover, so we may have a little more sound of wind or something on it. But I'll show you what I found. So first of all, let's try putting it down a little bit more. First of all, the soil, it's much different than with the garden compost and the kitchen scraps compost. The leaves have broken down a little, but there's still definitely some leaf left, and I think some of that has to do with residual leaves probably falling on it over time. So I think it still needs a little more time. The other thing I observed that was kind of surprising to me was I knew that it sunk down pretty far, but really, if I dig down here, this is probably like the deepest of it. I get maybe 2-3 inches, 2 inches deep. So it's actually less. Now it's spread over a much bigger space, so it's probably more in some ways. But it's much less moist. We have more of the sweet gum balls, which you don't ever want to step on these. It has more of those in it, but I think it'll be good to maybe combine with the compost I already have and put it in. The other thing I have to research, and I didn't think about when I was creating the pile here, is like I said earlier, it's under a pine tree. And as a result, there are some pine needles that have fallen into the stack, both here and for the big compost pile. And as a result, really, I remember there being something about pine needles and there being issues with them potentially preventing things from growing in the ground. So I need to do a little bit of research on that. Fix the microphone here. I mean, I could be very wrong. It could be fine. But if it's going to be a suppression, I think is the term that's used. If it's going to be a suppression for growing things, then I may want to use it maybe more in a flower bed or something where it's less crucial that it succeeds. Although flower beds are kind of important to me too. All right, I'm going to go inside, get cleaned up, and then talk to you. See you soon. So one quick thing before I get to my recap. I want to apologize for the sound issues I had when I was looking at the leaf composts pile. I didn't realize turning my head to and from the microphone would have such an impact on the sound quality or the levels. And I'm just not expert enough in editing the sound to fix that issue. I hope you'll bear with me and that it didn't turn you off too much. I am learning still how to handle all of that. I'm still new at the vlogging experience, but just wanted to throw that out there. An apology. I realized that was a bit of an issue. So there were a few things I learned today, and one of them was that I have a couple little holes in my leggings, which I didn't realize till I watched the video. So I apologize for the fact that you had to see those little pinprick holes. I don't think it showed enough skin to have to reshoot the video, but that will be fixed in the future. Second of all, I looked up the pine needle situation. I mentioned in the last clip that I was a little bit worried about that. So pine needles, there's I would say there's conflicting information out there. And I'd be interested in if any of you have had anecdotal experience you can offer on this. First of all, I think pine needles, you need a lot of them to really have an impact from them. They can have a suppression quality, particularly for keeping out weeds, but also for plants you want to grow. There's something about them potentially also changing the pH of the soil, although I imagine you'd have to have 99.9% pine needles for that to happen. And really, I would say probably the amount of pine needles that are likely, now of course I haven't watched it that closely, but most likely the amount of pine needles that are in my mix is probably less than 1%. So I'm really not that worried about whether there will be too many pine needles, or I'm not really that worried about whether the pine needles will cause issues. So that's good. The other thing, and I've sort of said this in the prior clips, but I'm really overall happy with how it turned out. I didn't know what to expect. I definitely expected the main kitchen scrap, garden scraps, leaf scrap combined thing to be just not as nice a quality of soil. I am going to have to sift through it somehow, and I think I may have even seen this on video somewhere, but I'm thinking maybe of using a rake, holding the rake this way so the tines are up, and then putting the soil on top and shaking it so that big things stay above, because I'm not going to invest in a big tool for sifting at this stage. Also, I don't want the soil to be, I don't want it to be that granular, but I do want to get out the big sticks and any extra little bits of trash or things that made it in there. I was very careful about what I put in the trash, but things do get in there sometimes. And like I said, I think the construction workers might have thought it was a trash bin instead of compost. And yeah, I'm happy overall. I'm curious what, if any, experiences you all have had with your composting, if you've tried it before, if you have any tips for me. If you like this video, please hit that button and subscribe if you aren't already. And otherwise, I will see you next time. So there were a few things I learned today. Are you coming over to join me again? You're breathing into the microphone, Lilu.